Here is the complete transcript written in natural, fluent American English, properly formatted with standard punctuation, natural pauses, clear paragraph breaks for effortless reading, voiceover delivery, and an engaging call to action to like and subscribe at the end. What if the government quietly returned thousands of dollars to your bank account, and the majority of current Social Security recipients have absolutely no idea this is occurring? I'm David, and today we're covering something the Social Security Administration has officially verified. This isn't a theory, and it isn't hearsay. It's an actual, permanent, legally passed change that is already boosting monthly payments for millions of retired Americans. In fact, some of them are finding hundreds of extra dollars deposited every single month. If you ever held a public sector position as a teacher, firefighter, police officer, or government worker of any type, or if you are the husband, wife, or surviving partner of someone who did, then what I'm about to tell you could directly transform your financial situation, beginning right now. So please don't swipe past this. Don't bookmark it for another day, because another day has a habit of becoming never. This is genuinely one of those situations where the information right in front of you could be worth real, tangible, life-altering money every single month for the remainder of your life. Let's dive in. For decades, and I want that word to truly sink in, for decades, there were two specific rules buried deep within the Social Security system that were silently doing something profoundly unjust to millions of hardworking Americans. These weren't provisions that received significant media attention. They weren't things the typical retiree came across in their daily reading. They were technical clauses tucked inside the benefit calculation formula that were cutting, sometimes drastically, the monthly Social Security payments of people who had dedicated their careers to public service. We're talking about teachers who spent 3 decades shaping young minds inside classrooms, firefighters who rushed toward danger when every human instinct screamed to run the other way, police officers who worked overnight shifts, weekends, and holidays keeping neighborhoods safe, nurses employed at government-run hospitals, postal workers, city clerks, county administrators, and state employees at every level. People who gave their professional lives to serving their communities and who were being financially shortchanged every single month in retirement because of 2 provisions most of them had never encountered before. Those 2 provisions were known as the Windfall Elimination provision and the government pension offset. Together, they created a kind of invisible financial penalty, one that followed public sector workers into their retirement years and quietly drained money from their monthly checks, month after month after month. Can you imagine working 40 years, faithfully contributing to a system you believed in, only to discover in retirement that the benefit you expected had been silently reduced? Not because of any mistake you made, but purely because of the profession you chose. That is precisely what happened to millions of Americans, and now, at last, it has been corrected. The legislation responsible for this correction is called the Social Security Fairness Act. It was signed into law after many, many years of determined advocacy from retiree organizations, teachers' unions, firefighter associations, and everyday Americans who refused to give up on what was right. What this law accomplishes is the complete elimination of both of those provisions, removed, repealed, and no longer on the books. And because of that, the monthly Social Security payments of millions of Americans are going up. Let me walk you through exactly how each of these provisions functioned, because understanding what they were doing helps you fully grasp why their removal carries so much weight. The Windfall Elimination provision, which those familiar with it typically called WEP, was a rule that reduced Social Security retirement and disability benefits for workers who had earned a pension from employment that didn't participate in Social Security, but who had also worked other jobs that did pay into the system. The reasoning behind WEP when lawmakers created it in the 1980s had to do with how the Social Security benefit formula operates. That formula is intentionally structured to replace a greater percentage of income for workers who earned lower wages throughout their careers, a feature designed to support people with modest earnings. Lawmakers at the time were concerned that certain public sector workers would appear to the formula as low-income earners because their Social Security-covered employment represented only part of their career and would therefore receive a higher benefit replacement rate than intended. So they created WEP to reduce those workers' benefits. And in doing so, they created something that turned out to be deeply and systematically unjust. Consider a woman who spent 25 years teaching in a public school system that didn't participate in Social Security. She then transitioned to private sector work and spent another 15 years paying Social Security taxes on every paycheck. She earned benefits in 2 separate systems through 2 entirely distinct periods of employment. She did nothing improper. She exploited no loopholes. And yet, under WEP, Her Social Security retirement benefit was being reduced by hundreds of dollars every single month in retirement, simply because of the years she gave to educating children. Consider a firefighter who retired after 30 years of service and then began a second career in the private sector, contributing to Social Security throughout. Same penalty, same injustice. Month after month, these workers had earned their benefits legitimately. They had simply worked across more than one employment sector over the course of their lives, and the law was penalizing them for it. That was never equitable. It was never sound policy. And now, it is finished. The government pension offset, widely known as GPO, was in many ways even more painful in its human impact. Are you prepared for this? Because the real-life stories that emerge from this provision are genuinely difficult to hear. GPO reduced spousal and survivor Social Security benefits for individuals who received a pension from a government job that didn't pay into Social Security. In practical human terms, what that meant was this. A woman whose husband had worked his entire career in private industry, paying into Social Security faithfully for 40 years, could find her spousal benefit, or worse, her survivor benefit following his passing, reduced dramatically or eliminated entirely. Not because of anything her husband did, not because of anything she did, but simply because she had worked as a public school teacher or a city government employee and was collecting a modest pension of her own. In the most severe cases, the GPO reduction was so extreme that surviving spouses ended up receiving absolutely nothing from their late partner's Social Security record. Nothing. Despite that partner having contributed to the system throughout their entire working lives. Widows and widowers, already navigating the grief of losing a spouse, were left with zero from Social Security purely because of the type of job they had held years or even decades earlier. That is not a minor policy flaw. That is a fundamental breakdown of fairness, and it affected hundreds of thousands of families across this country in ways that made already difficult retirements genuinely painful. Both of these provisions are now gone, repealed by the Social Security Fairness Act, and the people who were impacted by them are going to begin seeing their benefits reflect the correction. So who exactly benefits and by how much? Let's talk figures, because that's what matters to real people making real plans. The Social Security Administration has estimated that roughly 3 million people who were subject to the WEP reduction will see their monthly benefits increase. The average increase for those affected by WEP is expected to come in around $360 per month. Now that average covers a wide spectrum of circumstances. Some individuals will see increases closer to $100 or $200 monthly. Others, particularly those whose benefits had been reduced by the maximum WEP penalty, could see increases of $500, $600 or more every single month. Every situation is unique, and the precise amount will depend on each person's individual earnings record and the size of the reduction they had been experiencing. For those affected by GPO, the figures can be even more significant. An estimated 700,000 people had their spousal or survivor benefits completely wiped out by the offset, and roughly another 190,000 had their benefits partially reduced. For those who had been receiving nothing, absolutely zero in spousal or survivor benefits because of GPO, the repeal means they may now begin collecting a monthly payment for the very first time. In many cases, that payment could surpass $1,000 per month that they were simply never receiving before. When you add it all together, the Social Security Administration estimates approximately 3.2 million Americans stand to benefit from this change. 3.2 million people. Most of them retired, most of them elderly, most of them living carefully on fixed incomes, who are going to start seeing more money arrive each month. That is historic, and it deserves to be stated plainly and clearly. Now let me address something many people are urgently asking about, retroactive payments, because this is where things become even more critical to understand. Because of how and when the law was enacted, there is a provision for back pay going back to when the legislation took effect. And this is not a small matter. If your monthly benefit is increasing by $350 and you are owed back pay covering several months, you could be looking at a one-time supplemental payment of $2,000, $3,000, or more arriving all at once, in addition to your ongoing monthly increase. For a retired person living carefully on a fixed income, that kind of lump sum can change what becomes possible right now. It can eliminate a bill, cover a medical cost, or simply provide a financial cushion and a sense of security that wasn't there before. Now here is a question people are asking constantly, and it deserves a direct and honest answer. What do you actually need to do to receive these adjustments? If you are already receiving Social Security benefits, and you were affected by either WEP or GPO, You do not necessarily need to file an entirely new application from scratch. The Social Security Administration is actively reviewing its records to identify affected individuals and apply the necessary adjustments. However, and please hear this clearly, it is absolutely essential that the information on file with Social Security for your account is current and accurate. Your mailing address must be up to date. Your direct deposit banking details must be correct so that payments reach the right account. Your earnings record must accurately reflect your complete work history, including any public sector employment and any older work history. Gaps or errors in your earnings record, which are more common than most people realize, particularly for work performed many decades ago, could affect how your adjustment gets calculated. The Social Security Administration is currently processing an unprecedented volume of cases across millions of individual accounts. They have committed to working through everything as quickly as their systems allow, but the reality is that this will take time. Not everyone will see their adjustment in the same month. Processing is happening in stages. What this means practically is that if you believe you should be receiving an increase but haven't seen it yet in your payments, that does not automatically mean something has gone wrong or that you've been skipped. Your case may simply still be moving through the queue, but it does mean that staying informed, checking your account regularly through the My Social Security portal at SSA.gov, reading official correspondence carefully, and reaching out directly if you have specific questions will matter considerably in the weeks and months ahead. There is also a group of people who sometimes get overlooked in discussions about this change, and they deserve equal attention, people who are not currently receiving any Social Security benefits at all. If you worked in a public sector role and made a decision, perhaps years ago, to delay claiming Social Security because the benefit you were going to receive was going to be heavily reduced by WEP or GPO, that decision may now need to be completely reconsidered. The reduction that shaped that choice no longer exists. The financial equation has changed in a fundamental way. Depending on your age, work history, other income sources, and overall financial picture, it may now make excellent sense to apply for Social Security sooner than you had previously planned, or simply to go ahead and apply now if you have been waiting without a specific plan. This is worth discussing with a qualified financial advisor or a Social Security specialist who can review your individual circumstances and help identify your best path forward. And we want to be especially direct with one particular group, widows and widowers. If your spouse worked and contributed to Social Security throughout their career, and you yourself worked in a public sector role, and you were told at some point, maybe years or even decades ago, that you were not eligible for spousal or survivor benefits because of the government pension offset, that determination no longer holds. The rule that produced it has been repealed. You may now be fully eligible for a survivor benefit based on your late spouse's Social Security earnings record. If that is your situation, you need to contact the Social Security Administration and apply. This benefit will not arrive on its own if you have never submitted a claim. You must initiate it, and this is not something to put off. Let me make this tangible because policy language can sometimes soften the human reality of what we're discussing. Consider a 72-year-old retired teacher. She devoted 25 years to a public school classroom in a state where teachers didn't participate in Social Security. She then spent another 15 years working in the private sector, paying Social Security taxes on every single paycheck throughout those years. Under the old WEP rules, her monthly Social Security benefit was being reduced by approximately $400 every month. She had been living with that reduction for years, accepting it and budgeting around it because she had been told that was simply how the rules worked. Now those rules are gone. She is going to receive $400 more every single month. Over a typical remaining lifespan, that could represent $50,000, $60,000 or more in additional income. Money she legitimately earned, that she was always owed, and that she is now finally going to receive. Or consider a 78-year-old widow living alone. Her husband dedicated his entire career to private industry, paying into Social Security faithfully for 40 years. She spent her own career of 30 years working for her county government, for which she receives a modest pension. Under the old GPO rules, her survivor benefit from her husband's record was entirely eliminated. She received nothing, not because of any wrongdoing on either of their parts, but because of how the offset formula applied to her pension. Now GPO is gone. She is going to be eligible to claim a survivor benefit based on her husband's decades of contributions. For a widow in her late 70s living alone on a fixed income, receiving an additional monthly payment that could exceed $1,000 is not a minor improvement. It is a transformation in her daily financial security and her peace of mind. These are not manufactured scenarios designed to provoke an emotional response. These are real-life situations that millions of Americans across this country have been quietly navigating, sometimes for 10, 15, or 20 years, while advocates work tirelessly to change the law. And now, the law has changed. In terms of what you should actually do starting today, here is a clear and practical path forward. First, organize your documents. Collect your pension statements, Social Security statements, and any records of your work history, especially public sector employment going back several decades. Having this information in order will make every subsequent step easier. Next, log into your My Social Security account at SSA.gov. If you don't have an account yet, create one. It's free. It is the most reliable way to view your current benefit information, your earnings record, and any updates or adjustments being applied to your account. Review your earnings record carefully, confirm that it reflects your complete work history accurately. If you notice any gaps or errors, address them directly with the Social Security Administration. If you have questions, contact the SSA directly. Their national phone number is available at SSA.gov, or you can visit a local Social Security office in person. Wait times may be longer than usual given the volume of inquiries, but your financial security is worth the effort and patience. There is also something we must say very directly, because it matters enormously for your safety and the safety of those you care about. Watch out for scams. Scammers are already actively working to exploit the news about this change. They are counting on confusion and anticipation to lower people's guard. You need to know clearly what the Social Security Administration will never do. They will never contact you out of nowhere asking for your bank account or routing number. They will never ask you to pay any kind of fee, processing fee, expediting fee, administrative fee, or any fee whatsoever to receive your adjusted benefits. They will never ask you to purchase gift cards or send a wire transfer. They will never pressure you to act immediately without allowing you time to think or verify. Any phone call, text message, email, or piece of mail making any of these requests should be treated as a scam without exception. Please protect yourself and make a point of passing this warning along to elderly relatives, neighbors, and friends who may be especially vulnerable. Stepping back from the numbers and practical steps, what this change represents on a broader level is genuinely worth acknowledging. For decades, a specific group of Americans, people who chose careers in public service, who educated children, battled fires, protected communities, and kept government functioning, were treated inequitably by a system they trusted and contributed to. They were receiving less than they had earned, less than they deserved, and were essentially told that was simply how things worked. They refused to accept that. Retiree groups, unions, advocacy organizations, and individual Americans kept pushing, making calls, writing letters, and keeping the issue alive year after year. And eventually the law changed. That matters, not just for the millions of people who will receive more money, but as a demonstration that persistent pursuit of fairness can actually produce results. What also matters right now is ensuring that every single person entitled to these new or increased benefits actually learns they are eligible and takes the necessary steps to receive what they earned. Not everyone who qualifies knows they qualify. There are people in small towns, rural communities, and major cities who have no idea this change occurred, or who heard something vague about it and don't realize it applies directly to them. That is where conversations between real people make a difference. Sharing this kind of information with a neighbor, parent, sibling, friend, or fellow retiree is a genuinely meaningful act of generosity. You could be the reason someone discovers they are entitled to hundreds of dollars more every single month. That is not a small thing. That is real. So, as we wrap up, let's make sure the key points are completely clear. The Social Security Fairness Act has permanently repealed both the Windfall Elimination provision and the government pension offset. An estimated 3.2 million Americans are expected to see meaningful increases in their monthly Social Security benefits as a direct result. Retroactive back pay is part of this, which for many means a significant lump sum payment in addition to higher ongoing monthly income. If you're already receiving benefits, verify your account details at SSA.gov. If you're a widow or widower previously denied survivor benefits under GPO, contact Social Security to apply. Stay vigilant against scams. No legitimate Social Security process involves fees, gift cards, or urgent requests for banking information. If this information was useful to you today, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps more people just like you find this content and access information that could genuinely improve their lives. You never know who in your circle needed to hear exactly this today. Thank you so much for your time. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.